The generosity of Jesus. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Acts 20:35. Paul is saying goodbye to the leaders of the church he has cared for more than any other. He reminds them of important things he has said before and ends with a memorable quote from Jesus. It is more blessed to give than to receive. This quote shows one of Jesus' best qualities, his generosity. If you were asked to list a few important things Christians should do, give would be near the top. The word appears a lot in the New Testament and is emphasized strongly. Some people think Jesus is too extreme when he says, "Give to whoever asks for help, and don't turn away from those who want to borrow from you." But we need to remember that love should guide our actions. We should give like God gives, with love as our guide. Sometimes God doesn't give exactly what we ask for. He sometimes says no to us. Love can't give when it would cause harm. A mother can't give a razor to a little girl who wants it, and a father can't give his son every favor he asks for. We can't give money to a drunk person on the street corner, and we should always consider the law of love when someone asks something from us. Jesus couldn't write down all the rules for dealing with a world that always asks for things. So he simply said, "Give," without any conditions, hoping it would speak to people's hearts and show them God's intentions. Luke tells us that one day Jesus talked about generosity and said, "Give, and you will receive. You will get a lot back, more than you can hold. The way you give to others is the way they will give to you." This can be understood if you've seen a farmer measuring grains or fruit. The pressing down, shaking, and overflowing are vivid ways to describe how God likes to measure generosity. Jesus says that someone who is generous won't lose out because the world is built on a generous principle. By giving with a generous spirit, they will be in harmony with the infinite and will be rewarded. They don't need to worry about when the reward will come. They just need to keep giving and not expect anything in return, knowing that their reward will come eventually. So, when hosting a meal, they shouldn't only invite friends, family, or rich people who can invite them back. They should invite the poor, disabled, and marginalized who can't give anything in return. Then they can expect blessings from God, even if they don't receive them fully in this world. The complete reward will come in the afterlife. Jesus said this to his disciples, but it applies to everyone. You have freely received, so freely give. Jesus didn't like people who were stingy and selfish, and he showed this in his stories. In one story, he talked about a rich man who had a fancy feast while a sick beggar outside his gate only got crumbs. Jesus was angry about this unfairness. In another story, he criticized a rich man who only cared about his own wealth and didn't think about helping others. Jesus used these stories to show that being generous is important. In another story, Jesus talked about a vineyard owner who paid all his workers the same amount, even though some had worked longer than others. He did this because he wanted to be generous. But some of the workers were angry and jealous. Jesus used this story to show that being generous should be appreciated, not criticized. Jesus also praised a woman who poured expensive perfume on his head and feet. Some people thought she was wasting her money, but Jesus liked her act of love. He appreciated when people were willing to give and be generous. When Jesus said that it is better to give than receive, he wasn't just saying it because it sounded nice. He believed this because he lived it. He didn't have much money to give, but he gave what he had. He gave his time, his energy, his thoughts, and his teachings. He was always giving, even when it meant sacrificing his own comfort and rest. He had time, and he gave it. The precious hours belonged to him, and he selflessly shared them. He gave them all. He gave them so freely that he had to use hours when others were asleep just to find time to pray. He had strength, and he gave it with such generosity that it surprised and worried his friends. He poured out his energy until he had none left. At one point, we see him sitting exhausted on the edge of Jacob's well. At another time, we see him falling asleep as soon as his head touched the pillow on a small boat taking him back to Capernaum. On the last day of his life, when they placed a heavy beam on his shoulder, he stumbled and fell because he had been so worn out by the hard work of the previous months and years. He saved others, but would not save himself. Instead, he offered himself to death as his greatest single gift to the mankind. He had thoughts and he shared them. He had ideas and he spread them around. He possessed truth and he shared it with people. Look, a sower goes out to sow. It is Jesus. Watch the swing of his arm. What a generous arm. He scatters the seed on the path. No problem. He scatters the seed on rocky ground. So what? He scatters the seed in thorny patches and difficult corners. It doesn't bother him. The seed is abundant, and he will scatter it with a lavish hand, hoping that some of it will find fertile soil and produce a harvest to make God happy. Many teachers save their best ideas for a select few. Jesus scattered his ideas far and wide. He often had ignorant, prejudiced, and unresponsive listeners, but he threw his valuable insights to anyone who would listen. What amazing ideas he shared with the crowds of farmers in Galilee. What divine truths he revealed to people who were ignored by the world. No teacher has ever been so wasteful in sharing ideas. No great thinker has ever poured out their treasures in such a wild and immeasurable manner. He freely received, and therefore he freely gave. It wasn't just his intellect at work, but also the love in his heart that he poured out. His affection for people flowed constantly and fully. His compassion encompassed all classes, and no individual, no matter how low or despised, ever appealed to him in vain. When blind men heard he was coming, they lined up along the road, crying out as he passed, "Please have mercy on us too." Lepers, who were considered unclean and treated worse than animals, dared to push their way into his presence and ask for healing. Samaritans, who were despised by Orthodox Jews, knew that this new rabbi was their benefactor and friend. When he drove the traders out of the temple, it was the blind and the lame who came to him, knowing they would not be rejected. Compassion consumes one's energy, and Jesus always empathized deeply. He was a man with a loving heart. He loved both his friends and his enemies. He loved them from the beginning, and he loved them until the end. The love he showered upon his disciples purified them and bound them to him with unbreakable bonds. But his love also extended to those who hated him and screamed for his death. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. It is in this prayer that Jesus' loving heart is clearly revealed. He poured out his love with a generosity that reminded people of the generosity of God. After giving his time, strength, thoughts, sympathy, and love, he ultimately gave up his life. No one can give more than that. He was not a helpless victim of circumstances, or a prey to uncontrollable political forces, or a martyr like Caesar, William the Silent, or Lincoln. He gave his life knowingly and willingly. It was not taken from him by accident or fate, but freely offered by a heart willing to pay the ultimate price. He tried to make this clear over and over again. "I have the power to lay down my life," he said, "and I have the power to take it up again." From the beginning, he believed that he came into the world to serve people's needs and to give his life as a payment for many. It was only through giving his life that he could soften people's hearts and bring a lost world back to the Father's home. This is the story of Jesus, a man who showed endless love throughout his life on earth. His character not only shows us what people can aspire to be, but also reveals the nature of God. Jesus once said, "If you have seen me, you have seen the Father." This means that by studying Jesus' character, we can understand the qualities and intentions of God. The God revealed by Jesus is the same God we see in nature. The God of nature has always been known for being generous. The days and nights, the sky, the sea, the land, and the changing seasons all show his incredible generosity. He is abundant in everything he does and gives. He doesn't just create a few stars, but countless millions. He doesn't just make a few flowers, but a profusion that is beyond our imagination. He always gives more than can be accepted. He creates beautiful sunsets that some people don't even appreciate. He gives fruit trees more blossoms than they need. Whenever he prepares a feast, there are always leftovers filling 12 baskets. He is a generous, open-handed, and extravagant God. His generosity is always overflowing and abundant. He provides us with so many wonderful things to see, taste, and experience. He offers us countless opportunities to learn and grow. There are more than we can ever make use of in our short lives. Just as he is lavish in nature, he is the same in the spiritual realm. Jesus tells us to ask for what we need, and we will receive. It doesn't matter who we are, we can always ask and receive. For everyone who asks, receives. This is an eternal principle deeply embedded in creation and rooted in the heart of God. God is willing to give us more than we ask for or can even imagine. The generosity of Jesus is meant to remind us of the limitless benevolence of God. His message reminds us that we receive not based on our worthiness, but because God is eager to give. If you wonder why Jesus was so generous, the answer is simple. God is love. Love has always been generous. Love never gives out good things sparingly or with a stingy hand. When Peter asked Jesus how many times he should forgive, Jesus told him not to keep count. Love doesn't keep track. A mother doesn't count the number of times she kisses her baby, and a friend doesn't tally up the favors they do for each other. Love never counts. Love's nature is to give and keep giving, finding new ways to give more and meeting additional needs. Jesus said to fathers, "If you, being imperfect, know how to give good things to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him?" If you ever doubt the generosity of God's heart, just look at Jesus. In all of history, there has never been a man who found such joy in giving selflessly. He understood, more than anyone else, the true blessing of giving rather than receiving. His purpose was to serve, not to be served, to give, not to receive, and to sacrifice his life for others. If such immense generosity existed in our world, it must be because there is a generous heart in eternity. If we see such grace on earth, we can expect the same grace in heaven.